Hello and welcome to Celtic Mindfulness. My name is Donagh McKeown.
My name is Frank O'Connor.
And welcome back.
It's been a long time, so it's really nice to be back. I did some videos while we were overseas, but we didn't have Donagh, so it's nice to have two boys back in action. The team.
And we didn't kind of fall into the abyss. I mean, the world is still here, isn't it? It's the funniest thing. If we had or hadn't been here, but I like to think what we're doing is something positive to kind of move things forward for people maybe in a time when there's lots of consternation, there's lots of difficulties and all sorts of things. So we're back on the mission.
Yeah, I mean the idea is because we weren't here, did the world fall apart? Probably not. If a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there, is there a sound? It's kind of the same idea. So now that we're here, we should probably be able to hear the tree. Our idea is a simple one today, guys, just to kind of regroup ourselves. There's so much confusion around all of us right now, and we just want to come back and talk about some ideas on peace of mind and being. How do I stay calm in the midst of a storm? Because it looks like most people are in a storm right now. Most countries, there's pretty hectic political things going on all over the world, including our home country, Ireland, here, United Kingdom, Europe, Asia, all over the world. There's things happening, and because of our exposure, then I think to television, instant news, instant media, we get caught up in it way more than people might have done 20 or 30 years ago. So just going to take a look at that.
I suppose the best part to say first of all, this is neither political or apolitical. This is not about politics. This is not offering solutions to wherever we are or aren't in the world. This is just a way, I suppose from Celtic meditative sense, of dealing with your inner self that might hopefully come back to give a different reflection when you go to look at the rest of the world. It's about that. It's not about solving those problems, whatever we perceive them to be or not to be.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that there are enough politicians out there are enough people with ideas on how to change things, that's not what we're here for at all. We respect whatever any person's belief systems are. That's okay. What we're looking at today is how can I, as an individual, alter my perception of the world to one that is much more peaceful and reassuring and calming, so that I can continue to live in almost like in the center of a storm. I love the analogy done of the hurricane, and having gone through Hurricane Andrew in South Florida, which was, boy, I'll never forget that. I do remember the eye of the storm coming over and the calm descending on everything. It was only for a short period of time, but I do remember the calm because we thought that's the end of it, but it wasn't, because the rear end of the storm came in after that. But what struck me about it was, in the midst of that devastating storm, there was complete and utter calmness. So can I, as a human being, regardless of what's swirling around me, be that center, that core?
Not knowing everything about Celtic mythology or Celtic mysticism, there must have been that same mentality, and I'm thinking in the wider Celtic sense, or certainly the wider kind of culture of that time. You get it in, and we've spoken about the actual phenomena before, the maelstrom. The maelstrom is where the currents are going around in such a circle, but somewhere in the middle of that maelstrom there is the same eye that you're talking about. And I would suspect that the mystics of way back when have that realization that everything that's going on around you doesn't mean you have to be part of all that's going around you, that you can distance yourself, remove yourself, and be at a central calming point in that. So historically, I would suggest that's right in the heart of Celtic kind of mysticism. Must be.
Yeah, I mean the circle that we see drawn over and over again, the spiral in Celtic art all over going back thousands of years shows up. Well, the interesting thing, that's not unique to our culture. Every culture in the world has a spiral being drawn in their ancient drawings. The universe that we live in is a spiral. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, everything is spiraling, and yet at all of it there's a core, there's a center that is still. So there's that message, I think, has been around forever. But it's probably, to me, seems more resonant or more needed today than in the past, than ever before, probably. That idea that I can stay, regardless of what's going on, I can stay calm.
I think that some of the language that's used, some of the things that almost entice us, it's hard to use the word entice, usually means something that we like to go towards, but something that's in the middle of that maelstrom, is the core of it, is our fear. The fear of that unknown, the fear of the power of being in that circle, but at the core of that is the fear. And much of the language that we hear today, much of the discussion is about what if, this is a fear, that is a fear, this could happen, that could happen. So somewhere I would identify is about that position of fear.
Yeah, you really remind me of that idea of plotting and planning and scheming. If I can be in control of everything, and there's a desperate sense or need within a lot of human beings to control our environment, control what's happening, so that I can control my emotion as a result of that. And yet the truth of that is, here's an interesting story on that one, Donagh. I had this in meditation about a couple of weeks ago. I had this image of a beautiful sandy beach. It was very crystal clear. That went and stretched for miles and miles and miles. It reminded me of some of the beaches in Ireland, in Donagh, where they would just stretch for miles and miles. And beautiful blue sea, sun shining in the sky. And in the midst of that enormous amount of sand, there was one teeny grain of sand that seemed to represent me. And this one teeny grain of sand was saying to this enormous beach, I think I have some ideas that could help us all. And the beach was essentially saying, it's okay, Frank, we got this. We got this. You just you can stay in your own little, tiny little space and be at peace, because the enormity of what's going on is probably beyond your pay scale. And just sit in peace and calm and know that the ocean and the beach has got it. And it was like, gosh, that's such a wonderful analogy. So that stuck with me.
A piece of sand. Grant me the serenity to be that piece of sand, so that the things I can't control, like the other side of the ocean and otherwise. There's a commonality in many of the philosophies that we talk about. It's just giving the metaphor that kind of strikes the chord with someone to really kind of get that. I get that piece of sand.
Yeah, you mentioned the Serenity Prayer. I love that too. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There is another version of that I love, and it's just simply, God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me, the only one I can change.
One of the personal maelstroms, we talk about our experience quite a lot, was that time of psychosis, that time of in my personal circumstance, coming through depression there afterwards. Somewhere in the anxiety, once I recovered from the first episode, was being deeply fearful of falling into that episode again. And even that thought, it finally removed itself, has been dissipated in my life and hopefully never to return. I've kind of got the philosophy, as much as I can control that philosophy and the way forward so that it doesn't return. But I just reflect, I saw a friend of mine talking openly about their own circumstance. I'll not name names or say too much about the circumstance. And one of the key lines or two that I read in this actual suggestion of where they were was the fear of, I'm trying to think of the exact words, but the fear of breaking down, the fear of actually losing it.
It's all going to fall apart.
It's all going to fall apart. It's the very thing that you've been talking about. We have no control of that. And I'm lucky after the depression that it didn't happen again. But I then started to realise that was making me more fearful was the fear and anticipation of something before. If I got to the point where I just said, oh, let it happen, And as soon as you let it happen, do you know what? It didn't happen. Now, I can't guarantee that if that's how you are, but it's the fear that was keeping it and maintaining it. It wasn't the actual realization of or the completion of that letting go to let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about our own individual episodes of depression. You have yours, and I have spoken about mine. Lengthy periods where I thought it would never end. And in fact, one of the big lessons from that for me was that everything is impermanent. Everything comes to an end sooner or later. The other thing that struck me when you were talking was that desire to, how would I put it? I'll tell a quick story. When my brother lost his life through suicide, I was desperately trying to understand why, what happened here. His friend, who was a family friend, was a psychologist who was helping Ray, was working with him. And he said to us as a family afterwards, he said, look, I want to explain something to you. When this happened, your brother had actually come out of a deep depression that he had been in for a long time. So what actually happened was the thought for him, the fear, like you spoke about, Donagh, of that returning or ever going back into that depth again was actually what enabled his mind to come around and say, I need to leave here. I don't ever want to go through that again. So you're right, the build-up of fear and anxiety that we're all prone to. And again, we've taken it to extremes here for a moment from our own personal experience, but bringing it all the way down to scale, most people are dealing with some form of that, greater or lesser extent, on an individual basis, on a daily basis. So it all comes back down to, I can only respond to what's right in front of me. The fear, the anxiety, and the depression, and going back, guilt, remorse, forward anxiety and fear are all manufactured in the thinking brain, the things we talk about in Celtic Mindfulness all the time. Can I take a vacation from the swirling brain?
That's a pretty intense experience that you personally related to. Is there, not to put anyone's feet on your experience or circumstance, mm-hmm. Is there some hope? Because that's a pretty dark message in a way. It's the truthful message, mm-hmm. as the man has said in your story relates to it. But people watching, there is some light somewhere, that it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely.
Very much so.
I mean, the case for me was the realization, the understanding of how that happened meant that I had a choice. I could walk towards the light, towards solutions, or walk towards the dark. But the truth is, I always can choose. And it seems difficult to get the choice thing in our mind, but I always have the ability. Well, even let me go beyond choice and make it simpler. If I can live in the present moment, if I can just stay current, and that's why we use breathing and meditation, is just to stay current, stay present, stay right here. And if I do that right now, and just stay current for the moment, there is no great problem going on. All of those problems are past our future. So yes, it comes down, the real decision. Sometimes I struggle with it when people say, yeah, you need to clean your act up, or somebody having a nervous breakdown, you need to get your act together. And the only response to that is, if I could, I would. What do you think I'm trying to do here? So to come back to that, go beyond so-called making decisions and just simply choose to bring awareness to the present moment.
There are constructive ways of doing that. You don't know, you run these excellent meditation classes. There are others around, there are various philosophies, like getting out and walking and all the sorts of things that we're continuously preaching. But there are simpler ways of getting to those, just here and now, if you're in that desperation sense, getting someone to listen, the clearest thing is the first expression that you're in that place.
Yeah, can I honestly look and say what's going on? I had a conversation this morning with somebody very close to me who's in a whirlwind, a whirling dervish right now. And it took us a while just to get to the space of, here's what's actually happening. Here's what's really going on. Because as humans, we have a tendency to want to cover it up. We have a tendency, and I've done this, I want to minimize what's going on. Or I don't want to disturb you by telling you what my problems are. And yet, as Donagh said, the real truth of that is, if I can just break it open and honestly say what's happening, now we're in truth. Because once we're in truth, there's an option to do something about it. It's very difficult when there's no truth, because now we're dealing with denial. And denial it's insolvable when somebody's in denial. The whole idea with addiction, for example, that we cannot help somebody in addiction, regardless of what form it is, until they're in a space to say, I'm in trouble, I need help.
The word,
so opening up, yeah.
There's a word, the one that you use when you're in this kind of sphere is talking about enlightenment. If I broke down enlightenment, to me it means the on bit, or I don't know the complete kind of scientific or word used for it, but to me it means to bring light, to bring lightness, as in lightness of being, to bring light in illuminating, so that you can actually see. So if you bring in light, the simplest form of enlightenment is to get that thought out of your head into the world. So there is an enlightenment because of that coming out. So a lot of this is, to me, about, it's not highfalutin enlightenment, it's just simple. Let it out. Let it, the darkness that's in your head, out there. First of all, that's very simplistic, and that's.
Yeah, I don't think so. Then I mean, it's reputed. No, I have no verification of this, but it's reputed that when the Buddha was dying, when he was passing away, and all of his people were gathered around him, waiting for those final words of wisdom, it is said that the Buddha's last words were, "Be your own light. Be your own light." That was an enlightened soul for sure.
And that's believing in the solution to all those problems that you have in your head and everywhere else, even though you can't find them, are actually within you. You're your own provider of your own solutions in the end. It's basically what he was saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That if I go and begin the process, and that's a recovery process too for many people, of looking at where did all this come from? I mean, so if I go back, when a little baby enters the planet as a clean slate, let's say, there's nothing in there, immediately things begin happening. The parents are beginning to pump information in from the get-go, names, identity, personality, nationality. One of the meditations we do that I like a lot is the idea of entering a room, but before you go into the room, leaving everything that is not essentially you at the doorway, including name, nationality, work, all ideas of past and present, and just coming in and spending a little bit of time at the very essence of who I truly am. Another way of looking at that is asking the question, who am I? So who are you, Frank? I'm like, well, my name is Frank O'Connor. And the question is, no, not your name, tell me who you are. Well, I'm a working musician. No, that's what you do for a living, but tell me who you are. Well, I come from Ireland, so I'm an Irish person, Irish American. Like, no, that's your nationality, tell me who you are. So as you bring on that questioning and you strip away all these sources of identity, sources of personality, there's something sitting beyond all of that. Go back to the Buddha for a second. That just is light. That just is light. So all of the swirling, the problems, the ideas, the concepts, and even the judgments of, I don't like what's happening politically or religiously or whatever, it's all conceptual. If I strip it all away, there's just the light.
Well, we mentioned about the hurricane, we mentioned about the maelstrom and finding that spot in the middle. The real, I don't want to use the word trick, the real thing is to get to a place where you're almost removed and just watching the hurricanes blowing away past you in the distance. That's the real joy of doing this often and often long enough, isn't it, really?
The idea, I mean, that's the whole idea in meditation, Donagh. Can I sit in a quiet place And as thoughts arise, because they absolutely arise, springing up from everywhere. Oh gosh, did I make that phone call at 3 o'clock? Did I pay that bill? I mean, it just goes on. If I can sit still, allow the thoughts to come in as they will, and do what you just said. Be a witness. Oh, there they are. Hi guys, good to see you. You're welcome. I'm not trying to push you away, but I'm going to let you float on by. And I'm going to sit here in this still place, which is your idea of, oh, there goes the hurricane. Oh, there goes the rainstorm. There goes whatever. I don't have to partake in it. Yeah, exactly that. I like that analogy.
You have the regular meetings now. You've extended actually, because you're once a week in. Is this East Petaluma? I can never figure
This is East Petaluma, yeah.
And you're now extending your remit to West Petaluma.
Yeah, we went across the highway all the way over to West Petaluma.
Do they have more hurricanes over there?
They have a few more. Just a little more tougher weather. It's tougher weather on the west side. So for those who are in Sonoma County, every Wednesday at 7 o'clock at Mindful Petaluma, we have a 1 hour sound healing meditation based on Celtic music. I play music, flutes, keyboards, and we do chanting as well, which is ancient Celtic chant. The idea is very simple. All of what we talked about, allowing the meditation, the chant, the music to bring our awareness to that, because the awareness cannot be elsewhere. If it's focused and present with the music and the chant, just we relax into it and spend some time vacating the thinking mind every Wednesday. Every second Thursday in Fu Dog Yoga over on the west side of Petaluma, we do the same thing, meditation. For those in the East Bay, I will be at the Danville Yoga Center on March the 23rd, and we'll do a 2 to 3 hour workshop expanding out on this idea in March. So lots going on. Also working on a new 60-minute meditation that we will make available for everybody. The one side will have a guided meditation just to walk you through it. And then once you get used to that, the second 30 minutes is just all of the Celtic sounds, the Celtic music and chant, so that you can switch that on anytime, nighttime, going to bed, relaxing during the day, whatever. So that's all coming up.
And we look forward to having you in San Francisco. That's the goal for the next month or two. We've got to get you down there, because the storms are bigger down there.
Yeah, we're definitely going to work on getting some kind of a workshop or a meditation experience in the city, because we have lots of friends who are in the city, for sure.
Well, it's really good to be back. It's like reforming the Beatles in a way. It never happened, but we're happening.
Well, George, you're looking good.
I'm Ringo. He's the one with the talent. So thanks for watching again, and hopefully see you soon. Look out for updates. We've got the web page. We've got the new website coming up. We've also got the Facebook page. We're on Twitter, aren't we?
We are on Twitter.
Yeah. So look out for that. We'll try and post some of the links down below. I'm Donagh McKeown.
My name is Frank O'Connor. May everybody find peace today. Namaste.
Namaste.